In the year 2053, the world is a vastly different place. The population has swelled to nearly 10 billion people, and the effects of climate change have become impossible to ignore. The traditional methods of food production that we once relied on are no longer sustainable. But humanity, in its resilience and ingenuity, has found new ways to feed its burgeoning population. The first major shift in our diets came with the rise of plant-based and lab-grown meats. As the environmental and health impacts of traditional animal agriculture became increasingly clear, consumers began to seek out alternatives. The plant-based meat industry, which had been steadily growing since the early 21st century, exploded in popularity. Brands like Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods, once considered niche, became household names. Simultaneously, lab-grown meat, once a concept relegated to science fiction, became a reality. Scientists were able to grow meat from animal cells in a lab, creating a product that was identical to traditional meat in taste and texture, but without the environmental and ethical concerns. By 2030, lab-grown meat was commercially available, and by 2040, it was as common as plant-based alternatives. But the revolution in our diets didn't stop at meat. As the world's population continued to grow, it became clear that we needed to find more sustainable sources of protein. That's when insects entered the picture. Insects, which are high in protein and require far less land and resources to farm than traditional livestock, became a major food source. Initially, there was resistance, particularly in Western countries where eating insects was not part of the cultural norm. But as the benefits became clear, and as chefs found innovative ways to incorporate insects into delicious and familiar dishes, they slowly gained acceptance. By 2053, a meal might include cricket flour pasta or mealworm burgers, and these would be considered as normal as chicken or beef was in the early 21st century. Farming, too, underwent a revolution. With the advent of advanced robotics and artificial intelligence, much of the labor traditionally associated with farming became automated. Robots, guided by AI, could plant and harvest crops, manage pests, and even pollinate flowers. This not only increased efficiency, but also reduced the need for harmful pesticides and fertilizers. Vertical farming, a method of growing crops in vertically stacked layers, also became widespread. This method of farming, which can be done indoors and in urban environments, drastically reduced the amount of land needed for agriculture. It also allowed for year-round crop production, regardless of weather conditions. In 2053, a typical cityscape might include towering skyscrapers filled with layers of leafy greens, root vegetables, and even fruits. These vertical farms, combined with traditional rural farms, could produce enough food to feed the world's population. Genetic engineering, too, played a significant role in the future of food. Scientists were able to modify crops to make them more resistant to pests and diseases, more nutritious, and more adaptable to different climates. This not only increased crop yields, but also improved the nutritional content of the food. Despite these advances, the future of food was not without its challenges. The shift to plant-based and lab-grown meats, while beneficial for the environment, led to job losses in the traditional meat industry. Similarly, the automation of farming displaced many rural workers. However, these challenges were not insurmountable. Many workers in the meat industry were able to find employment in the burgeoning plant-based and lab-grown meat industries. And while automation did displace some farm workers, it also created new jobs in technology and engineering. In the end, the future of food was a story of adaptation and innovation. It was a story of how humanity, faced with the challenges of a growing population and a changing climate, found new ways to feed itself. It was a story of how we moved away from environmentally harmful practices and towards a more sustainable and ethical food system. So, what will we be eating in the future? A lot of things that might seem strange to us now. But these new foods and methods of production are not just about novelty or convenience. They're about survival. They're about ensuring that we can continue to feed our growing population in a way that is sustainable, ethical, and healthy. And if the trends of the past few decades are any indication, they're also about deliciousness. Because no matter how our diets may change, one thing remains constant: our desire for food that is not just nutritious, but also enjoyable to eat. Subscribe.